Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint my cat, Cashmere. We're going to be doing it step by step from start to finish. I've got my husband, Mark, with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's man in chat tonight, so if you've got questions while I'm painting, you can ask them in chat, and I'll try to answer. Let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be using a 10 by 10 inch canvas today. This is the Fredrix Pro Series Dixie Cotton Canvas. I've already painted it with a coat of carbon black, just all sides painted black. Probably need a second coat on there. But it's just going to give us a head start on this since we've got so much black in our background. And we're really only going to be painting half of her face just about because it's in kind of silhouette almost, or like lit off to the side very dramatically. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And so we're going to go over, this is our beginner series. So today we're going to go over some just basic fur techniques, and then we're going to go over how to do eyes, so how to do the reflections in eyes. And then we're also going to go over some glazing, which you've already done a little bit of the glazing in other parts of this series, but those will be the new techniques that we're learning tonight. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So you're going to want some sort of a brush that will give you a fur texture for this. So I've got some different examples of what you could use. This one is a larger version of the blender here. These are the VelvetTouch blenders that are part of that beginner series that I recommend. At least having one or both of these will kind of help you. They've got a stiff bristles, and they don't get soggy in water, so they work really well for blending and for things like foliage and fur. Another one is the Filbert grainier. This is a 1/4 inch one. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got these, the tip is like a rake or a comb, sometimes it's called, but it's got these split hairs. A fan brush is sort of similar, but this one's even more fine than a fan brush, and it's meant especially for painting things like fur and such. So these are really handy to have if you're going to be painting a lot of animals. This one, again, is very similar to the blender. It's a short filbert, and it's got those stiff bristles that we're talking about. This one is not stiff bristle. This is actually fine hairs, but it's got the separation between the hairs. That is what we need for this kind of technique. All right. Another brush that you could use is a small Deerfoot Stippler. You can use the very tip of it to kind of rake across and do some hairs too. So I'll show you how to use all three of those brushes to do fur. I might actually grab a little bit bigger version. I'll grab this one. This will be a little bit easier. This is the 3/8 inch version. And then a 1/4 inch angle shader for the eyes, for some of the reflections in the eyes. And then I've got a couple of rounds. So a number 4, number 1 round, and a number 1 liner. You'll need the liner brush for the whiskers. And we've already gone over how to do lines in our very first video. So if you missed that one, you might want to check it out. It's the very first one in the series. And it also kind of goes over all of the basics of how to paint with acrylics and sort of kind of all the how-tos. So that would be the one I would start with if you're new to acrylics. All right, let's go over our colors. We've got carbon black in 2 forms. This is the heavy body, and this one is the fluid acrylic. So this one is just more thinned out. That's the only difference. Same pigment, same everything, same color. It's just a little bit thinner. It'll just make it easier for glazing. That's all. But you can add water and a little bit of glazing medium to the heavy body acrylics to get the same effect. So it's a shortcut. Burnt umber, burnt sienna, cadmium yellow medium, phthalo green yellow shade, ultramarine blue, cadmium red medium, and then this is unbleached titanium, and again titanium white in the fluid form, and then titanium white in heavy body acrylics. And then this one is a little bit of zinc white. Zinc white is a transparent white. I like to use it for reflections in the eyes, but if you don't have it, you can just use your titanium white and add a little bit of glazing medium or some water or something to make it a little bit more transparent. So All right, let's get going here. It's going to be fun. One thing I'll show you how to draw it real quick, like super quick. I took this picture of Cashmere this morning. Go ahead and zoom real good in here, hun. I'll just draw it off to the side here and talk about what I'm doing as I go. So, perfect.
Now, let's clarify. You said at the very beginning that this is your cat. I think she would disagree with that.
She would say, what would she say that I...
Oh, you know the look she would give you. I'm just saying.
She's been actually really nice to me this week. So this is her resting RBF, resting bee face, we call her. This is pretty much how happy she always looks. So this is Cashmere, our cat. She's the princess of the house, the only other female, and she pretty much hates me, so on most days. All right. So for cat, just in general, you're going to have kind of a curve at the top of the head. Your ears are going to come up at an angle out, and they kind of come flat a little bit right here, and then come up sometimes, depending on, you don't want like bat ears. They kind of come up just a little bit and out like that, and then curve back around. They come out just a little bit right here where they meet up. The inside has got the fur going out that way and this way. On this ear, we're only going to see part of it. So we got like that. Somewhere like in there. I've got a lot of... And then her face, a basic good rule of thumb is your eyes are going to split your face in half. Humans, animals, most animals, I should say, most animals that have forward-facing eyes will have their eyes hitting right in the middle of their heads like this. So, and that's one of the number one mistakes people make when they're drawing people, animals, anything, is that they put the eyes too high up or too down low, mostly too high up usually. Leave lots of room, so split that head. Another mistake people make is if you are tilting the face, which in our case, we're pretty much straight on, but if you've got an angle to your photograph and the nose is angled, so say her face is angled this way, her nose and her eyes are all going to meet up on the same plane. One eye is not going to be higher than the other and cockeyed, unless the nose is also the same angle, if that makes sense. So the bottom of the eyes and the top of the nose should be at the same level as a general rule of thumb, okay? So keep an eye on that, because that's another thing, because it really can be tricky if you're using a photograph where it's tilted or not forward facing you. So then the nose between this part and this and the bottom of the chin, the nose is just below the halfway. So the top of the nose would be the halfway mark. So if I split this again, kind of that's the top of my nose, and it is going to be the same distance from the nose. If you kind of did a straight line up, that's going to be kind of where your eyes are going to start. So maybe slightly out from there, but it's pretty close to at least that inside part of the eye here. So the eye itself might start like right in here, but that inside part of the eye is going to be at least right along that outside or straight up from the nose width. And also there should be an eye width from between the nose and the bottom of the eye. So the top of the nose to the bottom of the eye, whatever width this is, that you should be able to fit another eye below it before your nose. Okay, so that kind of helps you know. And usually it's an eye width here too. So eye, and then on this side, sometimes a full eye, sometimes less. It depends on how much fur your cat's going to have. Sometimes more on the sides if your cat's got really long fur on the sides of its face. So that kind of helps you get our cat, she's got kind of a very narrow face for a cat. She doesn't have a lot of fluff in her ears and things. So she's got kind of if you look at the outside shape here, it's like a diamond. So that's what you want to do here. Kind of a diamond shape like that. Make sure you're getting that. So this would be the bottom of the ears. Come all the way down to that spot right there. Okay. And then let's go. Her eyes are, she's looking kind of mad. She's got angry face. So she's got kind of slanted like that, and then rounds out. It's not, her eyes are not like a classic cat eye. Some cats do have that perfect almond shape, you know, so it just depends on your cat. But that's about ish. And then the pupils are not actually right in the center. Usually they're, well, she's kind of looking off this way. So this one is slightly far this way. This one is a little bit closer to the middle, because she's kind of looking off that direction a little bit. In our photo that we're going to be doing, her pupils are blown out. They're like completely big because it's dark. So hers are going to be like fully wide. And another rule of thumb is that part of the pupil usually touches the top of the eye, sometimes the bottom also, but that sets it in the face. If you've got an eye and the pupil is right in the middle, it's okay, but it makes the eye look like it's wide open. And I mean, sometimes you do see that because, you know, but it makes that expression, see how the expression looks much more wide open than if you were to cut that off. That gives it a little bit more sleepy look, a little bit more grounded, and that eyeball is looking like it's set into the face a little bit better. She's got a lid there, but you get the idea. And then, okay, for the nose, you're going to curve it down, kind of box it in a little bit, and then it comes in, kind of squares a little bit of a diagonal here, here, and here. And then you've got like a pointed diamond shape, or kind of like that comes down, splits the nose there, and then the bottom of her mouth comes out. And Cashmere, again, has got a very small little chin here. Got a teeny tiny little chin. Some cats will have more. Some cats will have long hairs that are coming down here and off the sides of the face that makes it wider and gives it different, give it a different expression. But that's your basic cat drawing face. It's not a great job, but you get the idea. Okay, let's get going here. Short 10-minute cat drawing. Let's paint.
Let's do it.
All right.
Or how about you do it and I'll just sit over here?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
I like that plan better.
Sounds like a good plan. How's everybody doing tonight?
Everybody's doing good.
Good.
They're excited that we're painting Cashmere on National Puppy Day. So
is it really National Puppy Day?
This is what we really think.
That's hilarious.
It's just letting you know.
This is how life should be, according to Cashmere.
Cats rule, dogs drool.
National Puppy Day. I did not know that was a thing. Well, everything is a thing. If you read through the national this and that, like every single day has like 5 different things it's the national day of. So,
but even better, it's National Chip and Dip Day.
Ooh, I did it. That's what I had for lunch. How about that?
Well, see, you were celebrating in style.
I didn't even know. I had my leftover cheese dip from the other night for lunch. Because...
It's also Near Miss Day.
What?
Near Miss Day.
Near miss. Okay, so I've mixed burnt umber and ultramarine blue here in pretty much equal parts. It may have a little bit more of the ultramarine or the burnt umber, but I can't really tell. It's pretty close. And then just a little bit of white. So I've got kind of a dark gray here, and then this is pure white here that I started with. But I want to start with kind of a gray, and then we'll work our way towards the pure white. But what we're going to do is kind of work these areas that are in our shadow first, and just kind of get them dusted in here with just a little bit of color. And I'm using the stiff bristled brush just because it's gonna give me a little bit more just texture. And see how I'm kind of flicking that brush, and it's going to give me these little hair-like bits just by kind of dragging it. And I'm holding it fairly upright to the canvas so that it's kind of got some resistance there. If I was holding it too flat, I would be dragging it and skipping it. So here's the difference. Here's the skipping, right? If I'm holding it kind of flat, I'm getting, this is what we do when we dry brush, right? We get that kind of wood texture almost. So this time I'm holding it upright and I'm flicking it. And that way I'm getting these little hairs. We used, kind of like when we did grass the other day, we used this technique when we did that landscape so it's basically grass. Instead of grass, we're doing fur. It's basically the same exact technique. All right, so let's just tap. And I'm paying attention to the direction that I'm seeing the hair grow. So whatever direction that the hair is ending, that's the direction that I'm pointing my brush, the tip of that brush out towards, so that I'm going to get my little hairs going in the right direction. I'm not going to do it upright like this. I'm going to kind of hold it on its edge, and I'm going to do my brush strokes out a little bit this way. They go almost straight up in the middle. Well, they do, not almost. They go up straight up from the middle of the eyes. And then as they get to the top of the eye, they start to split and they start to go in opposite directions. So this middle part of the head, it pretty much goes straight up, but very quickly, right here, they start to split off and face the ears. And so by the time we get over here to the ears, they're going to be going straight up towards the ears. And then as we go around the eyes and around the side of the face, it turns and you're going to be going out towards the outside. And then as we come down, we're going to be doing down. It kind of parts at the nose. Right above the nose here, we've got this area that kind of goes in all different directions. It kind of splits right down the middle here. So you've got this like little divide, and that's where our light's catching right here. And then pretty much past this, you're not seeing anything, because this is that bridge of the nose, the light, the way the light was hitting her. The only other part of her that's really lit up at all is over here, and I'm going to use this darker gray for it. Over here on this side of the eye, just a little bit coming out, and then above the eye right here. And we already kind of did the forehead slightly where we were seeing it up here. Okay, and then there's a little bit of the eyeball also lit up. And we'll probably go back in here and add a little color, but I'm just going to go ahead and kind of start that. I'm going to get a little bit of black and clean that up. I kind of got it a little bit too big. It's a very small little spot there. Okay. There we go. It can be kind of a little bit tricky to do this kind of a painting, because you want to paint this side of the, at least I do. I don't know, maybe it's not for you, but for me, it's like I want to paint the whole cat, you know. But just paint what you see. And at this point, it doesn't look good yet, but it will look good once we get this other side painted and get it all finished. It'll give it a really cool effect. But you kind of just have to trust that process and just paint what you're seeing, not try to fill in places that the camera didn't catch, you know. Mm-hmm. I did take photographs of her today just to get a better picture of her eye, because her our photograph there was pretty dark and kind of blurry, so I wanted a little bit clearer. I'm going to clear up her eye just a little bit because I really want it to shine and be in focus. So if you've got a photograph that you know that's not exactly perfect of your animal, if you're not doing my cat, but you're going to be, painting your animal, whatever, then I would say, take a few photographs of them. Try to get a similar lighting, and that way you'll have, maybe not in the dark like this, but at least kind of have your light source coming from the same side, and that will, and try to get a similar pose, and that will help when you do it. Okay, so using the brighter white here in the middle here where it splits off. And there's honestly not a ton of texture to this photograph that we're using, so you don't have to do the whole thing super detailed like this, but I'm leaving that dark there. She's got little wrinkles in her fur there. And it's actually not black in those areas. It's actually kind of a dark gray. So I'm going to get a little bit of my black and mix it with this gray and use that so it is a little bit colored. It doesn't need to be fully black right there. Kind of along the edges where it transitions from the white to the dark, you can do that, and then go fully black, once you get up to the top here. And really at the very top, I'm going to use a black, and I'm going to be almost full black here. And I'm just going to do along the top of her head here and just kind of fill in that just a little bit. And we're going to glaze back over this, so it'll darken it up even more, but we'll have at least just like a little bit of something here to play against. And maybe some of this will kind of show through.
So we have a question, and I'm not exactly clear what it is, so hopefully you will. Excuse me. Allergy season there. They ask, could you paint the whole cat and on the dark side paint over with dark gray? So I'm guessing on the face.
Yes,
you paint the whole face?
You could glaze. Yes, you could glaze in the dark parts and just darken the. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's probably more work to do it that way, but you could totally do it that way. That's fine. And, it would be mimicking kind of the light sources that we've got going on here. So that's kind of what I'm doing here slightly, just very, very randomly adding just a little bit of a hint of some of this other fur that's out here. And this is a very dark gray that I'm using here. And now I'm using a little bit of the lighter color. And really, she's kind of got a little bit of a tan color in some of these areas. So I'm going to use a little bit of the unbleached titanium as well, just to warm up this white so that it's got a little bit more of a yellowish tone, slight yellowish tone. And really this fur is starting to kind of come out this way a little bit. And she's got fairly short hairs. Some cats are going to have a lot longer hairs. We did a video around Christmas last year, not this past year, but the year before, with a cat with very long hair, you know, and so, you know, the longer the hairs on the cat, the longer your brush strokes. So if I had a cat that had very long hair, I might do a brush stroke, you know, that's from here to here for the longer hairs. And, you know, with Cashmere, she's a short-haired cat, so I'm keeping my brush strokes very short and stacked, you know, close together.
And can you remind us which brush you're using right now?
This is the number 4 short Filbert from Aspen. Yeah, I don't think I mentioned that it was an Aspen.
The Princeton Aspen series.
Yes. And we forgot to mention, but thank you to Princeton and Fredrix. They're our brush and canvas sponsor. They provided our materials tonight.
And you can go over to brushguys.com/AngelaFineArt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And get 5% off with the code AngelaFineArt.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. I got the Brush Guys wrong. It's Brush Guys Shop Angela Henderson. I'll put it in the thing.
Okay. Yes, so I've got a recommended brush list there at the Brush Guys. I would say I get asked questions about what brushes to get, but I would say that my beginner series, I went ahead and kind of developed a couple of years ago a list of beginner brushes, and then this last year, we've added an intermediate list as well, right around Valentine's Day, actually. An intermediate list with brushes that are a little bit on the, more specialized. Is that a word? Mm-hmm. So that is a word.
More is a word.
That up there because it's not supposed to be up there. I'm just talking.
And real quick, why did you choose to use a Filbert?
It just kind of gives it a more natural look. A round brush a flat brush will give it a more squared off look. I'll show you the difference here. And I feel like it's a little bit more of a natural look. Get a square brush. You can use one though. If you don't have a Filbert, you don't have to, use it. But what happens with the flat brush is that you see more of where the line starts and stops. So I will see the whole brush stroke. Sometimes I'll see that you see a hard line on either end of that brush stroke. Whereas with and that one's going kind of in the wrong direction. So I'm going to get it off before it dries. Because it needs to go that way, around the side of the eye. With the Filbert, it's going to be more of the central area, and then the outside is going to be tapered a little bit because it's not hitting all the way across. So it's just a little bit softer, a little bit more controlled line, I think.
Now, if you had painted the bottom half of her face first, we could have just done like, I'm Batman, and been done. She'd have the mask on and we'd be out.
You'd be out, okay.
But I don't think she has a cleft chin.
Speaking of, we watched that whole the director's cut of the what was it called? Justice League.
Justice League, yeah.
And we got about 5 minutes into it and was like, do you remember any of this? Like, no. So we ended up having to go back and watch the movie.
Batman versus Superman. So that was 3 hours.
Right.
And then the next 2 nights, we split up the 4-hour Justice League.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were like, we can't. That's like what? How many hours is that? 8.
7.
7 hours out of our life we can't get back. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't. It was. I still am an Avengers fan. Sorry. I think they just did a better job of being funnier, more engaging, I think. All right. Moving on. Moving around the face here. I went in here and I just made sure that there was a little bit darker right around the mouth there. I grabbed a little bit of brown and some of that black and just kind of filled that in there. And then I'm going to go around the side and it really disappears right there. So I'm not going to go much further. I might bring this out just a little bit on the bottom here just because. And again, we're going to glaze this whole side so it'll kind of make sure that it's really fully disappearing more smoothly than I'm doing here. It's really the only way to get it to get that kind of fully blended look that we want, that fully kind of I don't know, disappearing. Okay, going on either side here of the dark. She's got this kind of lines in her forehead here. They kind of split the hair, split the fur. And I'm just going to really start to lay it on here. And get a little bit more of the unbleached titanium, so it's a little bit more warm on this side. So for the ears, it's going to go kind of out, and then we're going to have this light, and I'm just going to kind of use the edge of my brush here and just kind of scrub that in. Do that highlight right there. And really, if you wanted to do this in black and white, you could. I contemplated doing that, but I kind of like the little tiny touches of pink that we've got going on here. I think it just kind of softens the look, and she is a girl, so, you know. Oops, I'm off camera.
But you are on side camera, even more important.
Okay.
So we had you
A little
covered.
bit of highlight up there, of the top of the eye, or top of the ear. What? What did you say?
I said we had you on side cam, so we had you covered.
Okay, good.
Are you getting hard to hear?
Am I what?
I love you so much.
What'd you say?
I said, are you getting hard at hearing?
I think so.
And then you said, am I what?
I 100% think so.
That was perfect. It can't be my mumbling into the microphone, not towards you, for sure.
Yeah, no.
I don't don't care if you're painting Cashmere. Oak Island's on tonight, just a reminder.
I know. We'll be done.
Okay.
A little bit of a lighter area right there, right by the side of her nose. And really we're going to need a couple of coats because this going over this black is, with the white, it's showing a lot of that black through it. So I'm just kind of scrubbing it in here. And then I'm going to go back over and kind of add my texture. Top. So just above her eye is one of the brightest areas here. Right in here. It's going to really comes out a little bit. That brow bone catches the light.
She looks so weird right now.
I know, doesn't she?
She looks like punk or something. I don't know the right term.
Yeah, she does. And really, it can be kind of tricky to show values on a white cat, to show any kind of separation between the colors.
Right.
So,
like you said, there's so many different values, even though you're thinking you're only seeing white.
right.
It's all the different variants of it.
Mm-hmm. Different levels of brightness. Oh, this area, she's got this little smirk going on right here. And then this whole area here has got a fairly highlighted. I'm going to very lightly go over that area. Just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of color. But I want it a little bit darker right there. And then let's go ahead and grab some of this gray. If I've got any left, let's get some gray to do this area. So just a little bit darker right there. Right on the side of the nose. And right underneath the eye, it's pretty dark right here. Get a little bit the darker. Just make sure I've got that nice and dark. And then I'm going to make that really, this area right here, a little bit darker. I'm going to get a little bit of the burnt sienna. Maybe a little bit of the red. Just use it right in here. Right in this dark area right here. That inner eye area. Right there. It's probably a little bit darker than that, but we'll start there. Work our way darker. Go ahead and do it around here too. Just give the outer part of the eye just that little bit of a flesh tone. Burnt sienna black, little bit of white that's on my brush. And then I'm just going to pull out from there with a little bit of the white. It's got a little bit of that brown in it from that eye color. I'm just going to blend with so I would say this one is not like super easy, but I do think that it's good to challenge yourself even if you are just learning. So try it, see what you think. You may not be ready for this one, but practice it. Practice these brush strokes and see. The main thing is just really paying attention to the values, and that can only come with, just repetition and practice. So, and you may try this and I would say I would probably do it like mine first, maybe use Cashmere as an example first, and then try with the separate painting after that. Just because paintings can have such different values. You may have a painting or a reference image that might not be well suited for painting this. So if you're a brand new beginner, I would say, you might want to just try it with Cashmere first, because the photograph that you use really does make a difference in your results. If you've got good light and dark areas, good areas of contrast, you'll have an easier time of it. And this photograph is actually on the borderline. It's almost not good enough for what I need because the white areas are so close to each other in value. The dark, it goes from super blown out white to super dark really quickly. So there's not a lot of color transition here between the light and dark areas. But there's enough that I can, things like this area here, is just slightly darker than in the photograph. So I'm kind of bumping it up a little bit and making it a little bit more exaggerated than even in the reference photo. And also going from a dark canvas here too, it's going to take it a couple of coats for it to look good. Like right now, it's still got a lot of that undercolor showing through, so it's looking a little bit wolfish or, kind of a little bit odd. Plus, I haven't blended this and this together here, so it's going to look weird until I do that. So I'm going to get a little bit more of that Ultramarine Blue Umber color and use that down in here. Got some white on my brush still. I'm just spraying my canvas or my palette here so that I've got some water worked into my paints. It's important to keep your paints and your brush just slightly damp. You don't need it super damp, but you do need your paints to be workable. If they're too dry, they won't move around for you. So just keep an eye on it. If you feel like you're just, not getting anywhere, you're having a really hard time of it, then spray your paints really good and see if that helps. Because a lot of times when you're struggling, it's because your paints or your brush is dried out. And this really needs to be a lot darker over here. I'm going to get the black here. This whole area is very, very dark. It's barely visible. Okay. Wiping that out just to get that extra black or the extra color out of there. I'm going to get that black and I'm going to work this edge out a little bit. Just going back over this with a little bit of that wet black paint just to blend that out. And what we'll do is we'll glaze over this again too. So, but that just to kind of disappear that edge a little bit so it's a little more indistinct right there. And then let's get my white and a little bit more of that unbleached titanium. And now this is mostly dry here, so I'm going to really kind of bump up that brightness just on some of these areas where I want it to really stand out. Can see the difference there. That bright white makes over the top. You can see how dark that initial layer is, how much that black really toned down my white areas. So this will really help. And I can leave those initial areas as my kind of shadow areas now. You know, that first layer can act as my shadow area now. So now I can just kind of add in little bits of color where I want it a little bit brighter.
We got some questions.
Okay.
The first question is, what could they use if they don't have a Filbert in the Aspen series?
You can use your blender if you've got one of those. Use this one. I would be using this if I wasn't using this brush. The only reason I'm using this is just because it's a little bit bigger canvas and I just want to go a little faster. But the smaller brush will give you a little bit more control too. So I would say, you know, you've got the blender. You could also use a hog bristle brush if you don't have. I'm going to show how to use this one here in a minute. Let's go ahead and put in a little bit of color in our ears too. So before I do much more with this, I'm going to give it a little bit second coat here in a couple of places, and then we'll do the ears and the nose. I'm going to give it really quickly, just kind of go back over some of these areas here that I want it a little bit brighter.
And then the second question, when you got a moment,
Okay.
is, could you go over what to look for in a picture?
Oh yeah.
What makes a picture good for painting?
Yes, yes. Okay, before I do, I want to give myself time to think about that, or, you know, to cover it really well. So I'm going to, before I answer that, I'm going to talk about the ear color here. So let's mix up that fleshy tone. So I'm going to use the yellow, or the Cadmium Red Medium, the unbleached titanium, and I'm going to use a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow, just a little bit of each one of those. And what that does is going to neutralize it so that it's not a bright pink. Using the blue and the yellow and the red together make a brown, make it kind of more brown color. And so that added to the red, which I could just have used brown too. That's another option, but it's a good flesh tone. Using those three colors, you can make a lot of different you know, if you want a little bit more of a warmer skin tone, more of a human skin tone, you can, or like Caucasian human, by human by me human. I'm very pale, pink-ish. We can use something like this, but I would need a little bit more of like the reddish, orangey tones in it, probably. Using the blues with the reds will give you a little bit more. I don't know why I'm talking about skin tones right now. I guess because we're making a fleshy kitty cat skin tone. That's probably a good one to do next, huh? Let's do a skin tone one. I do have a video on skin tones with the heart hands video from way back. But where the light's hitting it through, you're going to want a little bit of that yellowish tone in there. See how that brightens that up, makes it a little bit more of a tan. Like where the light is hitting the ear. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Start with that yellowish tone. And it's coming right up against that hair there, so I'm not worried about the hair. I'm going to have to put the hair on top of this, so just go ahead and put this in. Don't worry about your going over your hair or anything like that. And right on this side it turns white, so I'm going to get that white, and I've got what's left in my brush here, and it's going to just mix with it and create this very light pale pink. You may have to add more of the pink if you've got too much white, or vice versa. So it's just up to you how much you need. But it should be very light in this area. And again, use that blue is what is key to keep this from looking peach or peachy. It makes it look more realistic. There's a lot of blue in skin tones. We've got blue veins under the skin, especially in Caucasian. You are, our pale skin like this is, you can see a lot of that blue through it. So I'm going to get a little bit of blue. And I'm going to even use a little bit of the burnt sienna with that blue here. Maybe a little bit of my red. Just trying to get a little bit darker tone for right in here. See how pretty that blue is with it? You wouldn't really think to use blue for skin tones, but it really is kind of the magic color that makes it work. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. You can see how it's kind of lifting there a little bit, maybe not, but you just have to let it dry completely. Okay, so let's use this on the nose. This is the brighter reddish tone. I'm going to use it down here at the bottom. And I really need to switch brushes here, but I'm going to just kind of do some of this first. Tap it in here. And I'm leaving a little bit of a border. You can see how I'm leaving a little bit of that black showing. So just leave a little bit of that black. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Clean that out. Let's go ahead and get the number 4 round. That's going to give me a little bit more control. I'm going to get my white here. And maybe a little bit more of the red. I just want kind of a little bit of a lighter pink tone. And it is kind of a baby pink here. So there we go. So I'm going to do this side of her nose. Got a little bit of a highlight on it. So I'm going to do that. Right there. And it comes down right here. And then you're also seeing it on the split a little bit. And then where this blends right here, I'm just going to get some of that darker color that we were using, some of that red right here, and I'm going to use it over the top. And I'm just going to tap. That's all I'm doing. Just tapping. I don't have a ton of paint on my brush, so it's just blending it nicely, well, very lightly. Let's go ahead and use that darker color down in here a little bit. Just leave a little bit of that darkest black right there, just to kind of a hint of where the nose is. And then I need to do that split again because I kind of painted over it. So I'm going to get a little bit of the red and a little bit of the black. I'm just going to make a black that has that reddish tone in it and use that underneath the nose and up that split there. There, and I think I'm going to use it in my shadow areas too. And just kind of tap along that split just to kind of blend it in a little bit. And I'm going to get some of the lighter reddish tone. Tapping. Let's go ahead and bring it up a little bit right here. And really this whole side of the nose is going to be disappearing. So I can get a little bit of black and just go over this half of the nose a little bit because this is all disappearing. Just tapping back over it to separate it out. And just make sure that this is dark right there too. That little split in the mouth. There we go. Okay, that's about all I'm going to do with the nose. I'm going to get some more white though, and a little bit of my gray, just maybe a little bit of pink, and just do the separation between the nose and the bridge of the nose here, the top of the nose here, and just tap that out. I had like a black line there, I just didn't want that there. But there is kind of a shadow right in here that we're going to have to put back in when we glaze, but I'm not going to do it right now. We'll just do it later. Okay. I'm gonna put a little bit more of that bright white right here. Coming down. And right in here. Okay. Let's put in a little bit more, and I'm using this brush just kind of the same way I was using that other. Just kind of drawing in little texture.
Friendly reminder about the picture question.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit darker in the ear here. So using this, I'm going to use a little burnt umber with the red and blue here, which basically is our gray. Red and the burnt umber and ultramarine blue is gray. So go a little bit darker. There we go. Just needs to be pretty dark right here. So value is what I think is the most important. I think that's one of the things that people don't really, and it can be hard to even see when you're very first painting, seeing the contrast between the light and dark areas. So if you don't know if a photograph is going to be good or not for a painting, the best thing to do is to turn it black and white. And if you turn it black and white and you can see all of the separation in the details really well, then you know that it's going to work okay in color. But if you can't, if it all looks very washed out and you really can't see a separation in your colors, or, you know, in the different areas of your photograph, then it's probably not going to make a great photo to paint from. Another thing is just a good composition, something that it can be a little bit tricky to find too, but there's all kinds of different, you know, rules as for composition. So I would just look that up because I can't really go into all the different composition rules right now. But basically, not having, I don't know, I can't do it without showing you examples. So I probably should do like just a whole video on that. Be a good idea. All right, so just going back in here and lightening up, adding a little bit of the brighter red to some of these areas here where but just need a dark color in the ear there to give it a little contrast. I'm going to use a little bit of this dark pink over here, just slightly right where this ear starts. Just underneath where we're going to do the ear hairs, just give us a little tint of color. It's that darkest area over here, and it's the darkest color, that I'm using over there. Okay, good. Good. We're almost there. I'm going to get a little bit more of the bright white here. And I need to do this V right here between on her nose. So I'm going to really need a brighter area right here. And I need this area right here to be like a V shape pointing down. See that? Really bright right there. Okay, looks good.
Okay, well, what was the brush that you were using on the nose? I missed that.
Number 4 round.
Okay. And is there a difference between glazing liquid and a retarder?
Yes. The retarder is not necessarily meant for glazing. Glazing liquid, at least the one that I use, has a retarder in it. It's got an extender in it. It's not necessarily called a retarder. But a lot of the retarders that you will find are not meant to be used very, well, you have to be careful how much you apply to your paint, how much you mix into your paint. So that's one thing that with this glazing medium that I use, I don't have to worry about. It can make my paints have a weird texture if I use too much of it, but for the most part, I don't have to worry about it. Sometimes with retarders, it will make your paint kind of slippery or act weird if you use too much of it. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're using it. Make sure that you're paying attention to what it says on the bottle for uses, how much to use, because it can kind of mess you up if you use too much of it. So the long version or the short version is no, it's not the same.
So basically a retarder helps slow the paint from drying so you can work it a little bit longer.
Right, but it's not necessarily going to change the texture of the paint much. It's the glazing medium is thinning out the paint so that you have more transparency.
Right, and the glazing medium is kind of like a unpigmented paint.
Right. Right.
Man, I've picked up something over the 4+ years I've been working with you.
Nice. All right, using a little bit of that darker gray right here, just where the mouth goes under. Just softening that up. I'm just kind of going back through now and just softening up, adding little bits of shadow and highlight. I need to transition better right here. So I've got a little bit more of a transition there. So I'm going to add a little bit of the lighter color right up underneath here. But
and I can also recommend that people can go to the manufacturer's websites. A lot of them, like Golden, have very extensive information regarding their products and how to use them and things like that. So.
Yeah, you can find a lot of information on the product websites. One other thing about photographs, going back to that, is that, now I can't remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Well, just that oftentimes when you're taking the photograph, there will be things in the way, or, I would say don't be afraid of taking things out of your photo. Mm-hmm. A lot of times there's things that are unnecessary that are in a photograph that you're taking, or things that are, in the way or not really adding anything. Just ask yourself if it's adding anything to the composition or not. And if it's not adding anything, I would just take it out. You'd be pretty, ruthless. Because a lot of times there's a lot of like small details and things in your photographs that you don't need, that are not really adding anything to the story. So you don't need to keep them in just because they're there in your photo. If you're, somebody, in fact, recently in my art taking flight group, she was painting a dog for her friend, and the photograph of the dog had a building in the background and a chain link fence and a car and just all these, like a tree, I think, and something else. And she was like, my friend really just wanted me to paint her dog. And she said, I've already spent like 5 hours on doing this building in the background. And, so she was like, spending a lot of time on something that really wasn't even part of what she was trying, that her friend really wanted. Her friend wasn't interested in the building. She wanted a picture of her dog. And so I, just recommended her take out the building and she ended up just doing a really cool picture of the dog standing, and nothing in the background, just a solid color and the dog. And it looked amazing, it looks great. So of course I like that kind of, more minimalistic type of painting though, some people might have, if there's some sort of sentimental value to the building or the, setting, and you need to add that, that's fine. But if it's not adding anything to your painting, take it out. Take it, save yourself the trouble. It's not, people are looking at the photograph for the dog, not for the, setting usually. Although, there's some art that is super detailed that, it's all about the whole, and there's reasons why everything is in it and it's telling a story. But, it's just up to you and what you're trying to get out of your painting. But I would, just suggest really keeping an eye on what's important.
I'm going to recommend, there's a YouTuber, Peter McKinnon. He's photography. And he goes over, what makes a good picture. And he also evaluates other pictures and gives recommendations of, and he uses different Photoshop techniques and things to change colors or remove, like you were saying, remove buildings and things like that to help give it a better setting. So
right, better composition.
Right, yep.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
He also likes coffee, so
okay,
that's important.
Shout out to Peter. Maybe he'll shout out our channel on his videos now.
He's only got 5.8 million subscribers,
That
so
would be nice if he, shares the love.
come on, man. We did for you. I mean, we're helping you out, so. Oh, sorry, 5.3 million. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I exaggerated there.
Okay. Get it right. That's hilarious. All right, so I think that's good there. For some reason, I think I've got the highlight a little low here, and it's making her nose look lower. So I'm gonna, when I glaze, I'm gonna darken up that little. I might get a little bit of the darker gray right now. I'm just gonna tap that in right there. Push her nose back a little bit. And there's definitely a shadow right at the top of the nose right there too. Just using a bit of that black. Okay, let's go ahead and do the eye, and then we'll glaze and we'll be done.
So there was.
I need to do the ear hair too. Sorry.
There was.
I'm going to show how to do this hair, this brush here, 1/4 inch, and I'm going to use the thinned out paint. When you're using this rake brush, you need the thinned out paint. It's like using a liner brush. You got to have the thin paint for it to work. So check it on your palette. There, go. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, it was just filler talk. Not important.
Okay, so I'm going to start here at the very edge and pull out. Do a few little ear hairs there. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to go from here and do the same thing this way. So just quickly, see how quickly it's great. They work so good. And the key is having it loaded right though. So if your paint's too thick, it's not going to come off easily. I'm holding it kind of far back here and just very quickly flicking it. I'm not like pulling a line. I'm just flicking it out where I want the hair to go, and it should. And also I'm kind of crisscrossing. You know how the hairs they're not all combed and going in the same direction. They're kind of doing like this. So make sure when you do it that you kind of alter the direction a little bit here and there. Have some going kind of, in different directions. And you can do the whole cat this way too if you want to. You can do all of her fur with the brush like this and get a very fine, fine hairs through here. I don't think she needs it as far as like with this photograph. It's not super textured, but you could do it like especially like along the outside edge here. It can be really effective just to have a few, visible hairs coming out. So maybe down here.
I like it.
Yeah.
You're doing a pretty good job.
Thanks, hon.
But what I was going to say earlier is that people in chat kind of noticed that for some reason, even though we've only had the dog for like not very long at all, you had already painted him. And this is the first time we're painting a cat we've had for like 15 years. So could you please explain yourself?
No comment. He's a lot nicer to me than she is. Although I have to say, she was being really sweet before we got the dog. But now she's back to not liking me again.
So she started to like you and warm up to you and do stuff, and then you went out and got a dog.
And then I got a dog. Yeah, I got another dog. Well, it was like after, it took a while after we got our other dog passed, and then she
finally forgave you.
She finally forgave me and started to be, more loving and affectionate. But I really wanted a dog again. I mean, plus this sounds cruel, or it's matter of fact though. she is getting older. And I was really worried about my mental health if she died. Like, I was like, if she passes away, I'm going to lose my, what. So, like, I need to have a younger animal as insurance.
My husband's old. My cat's old.
Yeah. But yeah, she would cough funny and I would, be in tears. So I was like, okay, I need to get a grip on myself here and get, all right, just adding very little hints of this lighter color in.
Can you put the rake brush up against like a paper towel or something so people can see better in the details of what it looks like?
You can see it there.
Oh, yeah.
It's called a Filbert Grainier.
And it comes like that.
1/4 inch. They can have different sizes, obviously.
So don't
the Filbert,
return it.
they have them in flats as well. So the flat would be squared off on the end, and I've used both. They're great. So whatever. I think I just prefer the Filberts for myself. I just like I showed before. I feel like it just gives a little softer look just to the start and stop areas of it. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna use a little bit of this gray here in my dark area and over the top here. I'm gonna glaze that area, but I feel like it was a little too okay. So let's get some green here. I'm gonna make her eyes a little bit more green than they are. They're kind of just a plain yellow. So I'm gonna bump up the color just a little bit, make it a little bit more neon. So I'm gonna use the green, phthalo green and cadmium yellow medium. Mix those together. And I'm going to fill in this area in here. And again, this is now because these are both kind of, well, the yellow is an opaque color, but the phthalo green is so transparent. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white. This will just help it cover better over that black.
And when you have a moment, can you paint some fur on me in the computer and the chair and just to simulate her fur everywhere, please? Thank you.
Yeah. More realistic version of what's going on.
So, true story, Jordan was on deployment.
Leaving a little bit of the black line around the outside edge of that.
Halfway across the world.
Yes.
And when we talked to him, I'm still finding cat hair on my stuff.
Yeah, he was 6 months out of country and he still was finding cat hair.
So she can shed with the best of them.
Yeah, we call that her superpower because if you pick her up, it's just like deploy the fur. It's her defense mechanism. All right, I should have done this first because now, all right, we're just going to have to glaze while we're waiting for that to dry because we're going to have a couple coats.
I just want these eyes to haunt everybody tonight in their sleep.
Yeah. Let's use, I'm going to get I want a smooth brush for my glazing. I'm going to get I'm going to use a 3/8 inch angle brush. It's soft. So I'm going to use the black, the fluid black, and my glazing medium. What that does is just cut down gives me a little extra drying time, and it cuts the opacity of the color. So it makes it a little bit more transparent, more fluid also if you need to use the heavy body acrylics. It can be a little bit stickier than water though, so I would say if you're using this with water, I would use it 50-50 with water, and then add your color, whatever it is, you know. The more glaze, the less color, more color, less glaze, you know. You're going to have a more intense coverage if you use more paint than glaze, and vice versa. So if you want it very thin at first, we're just going to start with a very thin coat, and I'm just going to use my finger to help blend it out. Now, if you're seeing like puddling on here, you may have too much water. So just watch that. I'm going to go right in my darkest areas with this and just glaze over. And in these areas over here where I want it going off the edge, I want it so dark that you can barely see it. So I want it really dark in these areas where we are disappearing into the dark. Okay. And then right along that border, I can use my finger, or I can use paper towel, or you can just brush across it, wipe your brush off and kind of brush across it. You just want it to be a gradual blend to black, fade to black. And I'm getting a straight line right here, so I'm just going to use my finger and wipe across that to kind of blend that out. Okay, and then I'm going to wipe most of this out and just kind of dry brush almost this color across the top of the nose. And just make sure this part of the nose is dry, is dark right here. It kind of comes down, right, splits that middle of the nose all the way down. Get a little bit more. Glaze across right here. Oh, I forgot to do this side. Get a little bit of that green. Just the tiniest little bit of it right there. We're gonna, again, we're going to glaze over this eye. So this is not the final version of it, but I need a little bit of that color right there. All right, I'm gonna, while this is wet, or while this is, now this is dry, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a second coat. And this time I'm gonna use a little bit more yellow. And I'm going to tap it. Her eyes got a lot of, cat eyes especially have a lot of kind of lines in them, a lot of those muscles really is what it is, I think, of that iris opening, closing. So I'm going to pull out from the center out and give it a little bit of texture. And it doesn't have to be straight lines, because her eyes, if you look at it, she's got all these kind of weird looking little veins and things in it. So this one's a little bit better, clearer. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of burnt sienna and use a little bit of that around the outside here and do some little wigglies around the outside of her eye. And just mix that burnt sienna with the green a little bit to get that color. Okay. Okay, keep on going back here. I need to make sure that I don't let that paint dry out of my brush there. Okay, getting a little bit more. Now, if you want to, if you're having trouble controlling it, you can just load your brush with the paint on the tip of the brush. Just going to run the tip through. And that's a way to kind of control it a little bit more and pull off the color off this back end so that that paint is brighter at the tip. And that way you can go along some of these areas. Well, I'm not really doing a very good job of showing you here, but it just helps control where that paint's going. So I'm adding the glaze now. That is almost even with this little point that comes down here. It's kind of even with the top of the eyes, just about. Comes up right here too. See how that just darkens up these areas, gives it a little bit more control. And I can also use, using kind of the tip of the brush to draw almost like hair-like. And I'll probably go over the transition between the dark and the light here a little bit with my brush too, so that I'm getting the hairs going over it. But see how I'm kind of pulling up and separating out my bristles a little bit so that it's creating there's kind of a wiggle here, and I'm not getting it very good. I'm trying to wiggle that, but it's not doing a good job of it. Let me try that again. So you mess up or you want to change it, just wipe it off while it's still wet. And I'm going to go through there, go almost straight down, and then come at an angle again. There we go. All right, come down a little bit right there in front of the ear, a little bit right here. And some of these areas may be, too dark. So you don't have to go as dark as I am here. Depends on what, if you did a lot of gray in these areas, so how much of this you need. But over here, I'm wanting to disappear most all of this, so I want to make sure I'm going over this with my nice dark black, and then I'm going to transition over this area right here to go from this light bright white to the dark pretty quickly, so it'll blend over that transition there and just soften up that whole thing a little bit. then let's glaze over here. Glaze out where that is. Glazing can be kind of tricky, so just kind of, I would say go slowly. And if you're seeing an obvious line, you probably have too much paint on your brush. You want to use, fairly thin amount of paint. And when I say go slowly, I mean like build up your layers slowly. You don't have to do it all in one layer. So do small sections. Don't try to glaze the whole thing, all in one thing. Maybe, do a little section here, a little section there, and then go back in and add more as you need it. But just make sure that you're blending it out as you go so that you don't have any areas that you have a hard line. So if you see a hard line, just kind of use your finger or something to wipe it off. But make sure that you're not you can't wipe it off when it's starting to dry or it'll streak. So just make sure that you're catching it when you very first put it down if you need to blend it out. Don't try to wipe it off when it's drying or you'll kind of mess it up a little bit. All right, getting the very tip of the brush. I'm going to go around the eye here and glaze around the whole eye, all the way around. And I've got it just on the tip so that I can really control where it's going. You can see I'm not really even seeing a line where it's ending, and that's what I want. Good.
So you're going to paint two more, right?
Two more? What are you talking about?
Well, one for me, then one for Jordan.
I know, one for Nathan.
One for Nathan.
I know.
Spencer probably want one too, so excuse me. I mean, it's good. It doesn't beat the tree, but it's good though.
What tree? What are you talking about?
This one over here, my favorite.
Oh, your favorite? Yeah. You like it? Good. I have a feeling this will be in Spencer's room.
So somebody asked, is glazing floating?
No, it's not. Floating is using the very tip of the brush to add your just the corner of the brush with water, usually just with water. But you can float with the glaze, so it's kind of similar in that way. When I'm using just the corner of the brush here, that's what floating is. You're using just the corner and controlling where the paint's going, and that's your floating. I am messing this up because I'm messing with it while it's. I tried to do the second coat on it, and it was not dry yet, and so it's kind of blotchy. Okay.
And I prefer root beer.
What?
When I'm floating.
Oh.
You move on too quick for my good jokes. Like you were talking about the brushes at the beginning of the show, and one of the brushes had really fine hair, and I was going to say, well, it came from you then. It's fine.
Your dad jokes are
spot on.
Are spot on tonight, honey. You remind me of Mr. Collins. You saving up your jokes, trying to give them as unstudied an air as possible for the females. Mr. Collins in Pride and Prejudice. He's like how does he say it? I can't remember. Oh, I'd have to look it up. I can't think of it right now off the top of my head, the quote. But yeah, that's what he would do. He would come up with compliments for the ladies that, Okay.
Unfortunately, these come right off the top of my head. Very little filtering.
That's all right. I like it.
So
I am not complaining. All right, so I'm going to use my black and a little bit of burnt umber to glaze on the eye now. And I am going to float here, so I'm going to use just the tip of the brush. And I'm using the brown just so that it's a little bit a softer color. I don't want it full black, but I do want it pretty dark. And this time I went around the outside with the tip facing in, but this time I'm going to turn it so that the tip is facing out, and I'm going to float on the eyeball itself. What this is going to do is settle it down into the head. Make sure you do right here too. This is the most important area, really, is right at kind of right at the top here too. Making sure you get it nice and dark right there and all the way around. Just makes that eye sated down in the head. Right there, okay. And especially her eye is quite dark, so there's not a huge amount of light. There's just a tiny bit of light hitting right here, and we're going to be capturing that here in a minute. I'm going to do this eye as well. So I'm going to glaze over this whole eye right there. Darken up that color. And I'm going to get the black here, and I'm going to go over the inside of it and make sure I've got it. There we go. And this is dark all the way across right here. So I want to, it kind of doesn't, it cuts off the bottom of her eye. It doesn't show the full green all the way around.
And people were reminding you to not forget the whiskers.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I'm going to mix burnt sienna and my yellow. I'm going to use just a little bit of it right here. Kind of give it a little highlight right here. Coming down. That light's shining through, catching. And do a little bit right there too. So just kind of bumping up the highlight right there and there, and I'm going to get my glaze, my Zinc White. I can't say words right now. Sorry. Oh, Lordy. Let's get into that point. Okay. And I do want to put a little, there isn't one in this, but you can see on here, this little highlight right there, or, well, it's on the outside there. Here, it shows better on this one. See that little bit right there? And that kind of glassiness. Now, of course, in our photograph, the light is down here, but I do want to do just a little bit of a glassiness on the inside of this this eye here. So I'm going to get my Zinc White, and it's transparent, so I've just added a little bit of water to it. It's not going to cover very much, and I want to take this line out so I don't see that. Okay, there we go. And I'm just gonna do just a little like that. That is called a comma stroke. That's one of the, in my worksheet that I did a couple years ago. I have if you go to the playlist for the beginner series, if you just look up Angela Anderson beginner playlist or something like that, beginner series, it's called 5 Essential Brushes. and it's a brushstroke worksheet. And for the comma stroke, what you're doing is using that round brush. You're setting your brush down at just a slight angle and then lifting as you turn it. So that's what I just did in her eye. Just set it down and kind of flicked it. It was a small version of the comma stroke, but that's what it is, basically. So I would say that getting that worksheet, and you can print it out. I've got it on my website at thankfulart.com. If you go to the traceables page, I think it's at the very top, I believe, or it's part of that page though, somewhere. If you search for it, it'll be on there. But you can use that with the video that I did of it and practice those kind of basic brush strokes. And they come in handy. You never know when you're going to need them. So that kind of, I feel like it's like learning the musical scales. When you're learning to play the piano and you're having to do these scales, and it's like over and over again, repetition. Well, that's what. Using I'm going to use some glaze here with my gray and just kind of do a little bit of color down her nose here. That's what those brushstroke worksheets will do if you kind of practice them. You may not notice it, but over time, it's just kind of building up your muscle memory in your hand and getting you used to holding the brush, manipulating the brush in different ways, and it will translate to your painting eventually. You'll eventually be in that, need it, and it will be there for you. You'll be able to paint what you want to paint because you've practiced. And, if you're not painting other things, but I would say it's a good just warm up. You could just start your painting session with that. Just do a few. You set it up with some tracing paper like I do in the video, so you're not wasting, a canvas or anything. You're just practicing on tracing paper. And
for the video, it's from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So you'll have to scroll down a ways to get it.
But you can, like I said, I think it's called 5 Essential Brushes. And it'll pop up if you search for that, Angela Anderson. Or look, it's also in that, like I said, in the beginner playlist for this series. I put it in there so that you could find it easily. Okay, just using the black here, black. No glaze, just darkening it up. And then let's use the Zinc White a little bit thicker. And I'm going to press my brush flat so that it kind of makes a square. How are we doing on time? 2 hours. Okay. Yeah, we need to quit here. And I'm going to go over the top of my green just a little bit right here. And then I'm going to get my titanium white on the very tip. And I'm just going to draw in kind of on the inside of that highlight so that I've got a little bit of a bleed around the outside of it with that zinc white. That makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead and use this titanium white here and mix the zinc white with it. And I'm just going to see how these little ditty dots and things happen in the eye. So I'm just going to do a couple of those just to have a couple of little bits on there. I think it'll just add a little more transparency. And one of the things with an eye that you want to watch is just follow the curve of the eye. So when I'm putting in these highlights, I'm kind of paying attention to the rim, the outer curve. This one is curving slightly at the bottom with the curve of the eye. It's kind of pointed at the top here, kind of coming up. Okay. On the other eye, there's really no highlights, but again, we can kind of do a little tiny bit right there, maybe just a little catch in the light. Slight. And I want this little one right here to be bright right there. Okay. Isn't that neat how that gives you that depth? But again, making sure that you've got this dark around it is really important so that it places the eye in the eyeball. It kind of pushes it down.
Socket.
Yeah, into that socket there so that it's grounded in having that shadow around it is what makes it realistic looking. And just smoothing that out. Just making sure I've got a good dark shadow all the way around it. Okay. And I get a little bit more of my pink color on that nose. Put a little highlight right there. There's a highlight right here, so make sure you got a good highlight right there. I'm gonna do a little bit darker color going down here. A little bit more of that darker pink. And let's do the whiskers. That's why her face looks kind of weird. But I do want to do just a little bit of, I'm going to glaze with this rake brush with the black. I'm going to do a little rows of dark where her whiskers are going to be. Kind of in here. I don't need them super dark, but I do need like a little bit of a dark area right there. Maybe I'm going to use the tip of my brush here instead. See that? And then I'm going to tap it out so that it's very subtle. Very, very subtle. Okay, let's go ahead and glaze here. I'm going to get, or I'm sorry, not glaze, do my lines. I'm losing my mind right now. Sorry. Oh. This is a long one for a beginner series one. Usually a little bit shorter than this, but she had a lot going on here. I wanted to do it right and do it really realistic for you so you can try it. You can simplify it however you want to. So there's lots of ways to simplify it. I've got another black cat video where you can see how you would do the colors for a black cat. And then if you want other colors, you're out of luck. Sorry. No, I'm joking. I do have a brown dog video too. So that one would be, for brownish cats. But they're all pretty similar. The one with the black cat is maybe a little bit more simplified than this one is. All right, using the fluid white here, I just put out some fresh white because it was kind of dried up a little bit. Using my liner brush and rolling it to a good point. And I'm going to curve my whiskers out this way. So I'm going to set it so that I can do them. Ideally, I would be doing my brush strokes in this direction, but it's going to be kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to practice it. I kind of do this, practice it, make sure that I can get like the whole whisker in there without having to move my hand. You don't want to have to adjust your hand while you're in the middle of a brush stroke. So just make sure you can get the full range of motion out of your hand, wherever you have it started. Lots of whiskers. And then there are some on this side that are visible too. I'm going to add black because they're not as bright. Or we can do them white and then glaze over them. Either one. but I think just doing them gray will work as well. So make sure I have them thin. I can do a couple that are kind of catching the light from like mid, right? They're not attached to anything. They're just kind of floating out there because they're all of a sudden caught the light there. And I can use some of this gray for these ones over here too. Help you see them against the white. Add a couple there. And her whiskers are really long, so if you wanted to, you could go to town on them. And I think I will go a little bit longer on these, even though they're not in the photo. I want to do some pretty long ones. So isn't that fun? I'm holding my brush out pretty far here also. And then if you get any of these whiskers in here that are too bright, and once they're dry, we can glaze over them. We keep going back to the glazing, but it really does help you control what is on your canvas. You don't have to paint over anything. You just glaze over it to control, how bright something is. And especially in something like this where you want it to look like it's kind of disappearing into thin air, just like we did over here, we're going to glaze where it starts. And just glaze over it enough to where just the end of it kind of disappears a little bit, but you can see it kind of going down into that, so you can see it sort of disappearing. Just pulling out from that dark so that the very tip of it is kind of hidden and obscured. All right. So I'm going to get the very bright white here, and I'm just going to do a few little more little deals. This is kind of a gray. I'm darkening up that a little bit right there, right under her nose. With a little bit of a darkish color. I can also kind of add a little to my whisker area if I need to again. But now we've got our color on there, we can go back in with our brush here. Well, and I was going to show these brushes. These are this. Oh, I was going to show this. Sorry, I was going to show the Deerfoot Stippler, so you can see how you can load just the tip of it and just pull it. Get a similar. It's a little bit trickier with the Deerfoot though, because it's not as flat, so you're going to have a hard time kind of controlling how you load it a little bit more than if you're using one of the Filbert brushes. And I'm just going to go over where these black areas are just a little bit here, just to kind of make sure that my hairs are going up over my glaze area just a little bit. Again, this area right here is where it's pretty bright, so it goes kind of right here and up. Am I missing anything else? Got the whiskers. Mark's like, Oak Island is about to start. Let's quit. You got 4 minutes, girl. Quit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good.
I hesitate to say, but people are saying pink under the left eye.
Pink under the left eye?
People are seeing pink under the left eye.
Pink?
Yeah, I can't see it in my picture, but
I can't see it on mine either.
it's okay, we're good.
I can put a little bit of it, but I'm going to do it dark. Burnt sienna.
Somebody said the right eye, but I can't see the right eye at all, so I don't see how they see pink.
Yeah, we did pink here. I just went over it so much that it kind of hid it. So I'm going to do a little bit of pink over here, a little bit more right there.
So we got right eye, corner of the left eye. No, wait, sorry, eye. People are typing frantically here.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I don't see in my photograph. I've got it up on my monitor. I'm not seeing anything in that left eye. Or in this eye. Which eye is that? Right eye. I'm not seeing. Are you saying pink underneath this eye? There is pink in there. It's just dark. It's so dark you can't really see it much. All right, I'm going to quit. Let me see. I'm going to darken up this shadow under the nose here again, though. I'm going to glaze some burnt umber burnt sienna and red. Just right here. Darken that up a little bit. Go.
I'm trying. Okay. My bell's
No,
broken or something.
I thought you were waiting on me. You were looking at me, so.
It was like shaking and not ringing for some reason.
Funny.
Anyways, we had a super chat. It was from Patty, and she says, "Love you guys."
Aw.
Well, thank you, Patty.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
Patty.
it.
Super sweet. All right, there we go. Where's Cashmere? She's so cute. Even though she looks mad all the time, she's still cute. I want to bring her nose out here, though. I feel like her nose isn't quite right for some reason. I don't know what it is about it. I'll probably see it tomorrow after, I look at it for a little while. That's the only bad thing about painting these live is that sometimes I see things after the fact that I didn't see right. Sometimes when you sit with the painting and you're like right here on it, it can be hard to see things that, you need to change. So I would say take a break before you finish or, look at it from a distance for a little while before you put your final touches on it. I think that's a little bit better. I think just bringing that nose out a little wider right there, a little bit of the highlight right up out here. Mark's like, are we done?
I just had to turn the TV on. Get you the right channel. I'm ready to go.
All right, I'm going to sign it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on Saturday. We're going to be back for a sailing ship. Should be a fun one.
Remind everybody about patreon.com/angelfineart, traceables, bonus contents, all that good stuff. And a reminder that this show is being taped towards the end of a month. So you get billed when you signed up and then the first of every month. So if you signed up today, you would then be billed on the 1st of April again. So just a heads up. On
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't prorate it. It charges you the full amount when you sign up and then the full amount again when you, on the 1st of the month. So, okay, this brush is too big for that little signature right there. Oh, now I can't get it off. Great. All right.
It's good.
We'll come back to it. Yeah, you can. I'll do it off camera. I don't have to do it on camera.
So it's a good example of why you paint your canvas black so that you can go back over it
There you go.
with the same black and paint it and then redo it.
Yes.
And not just a black canvas because then it wouldn't match.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. Okay, here we go. I can do it.
Remind everybody to like, subscribe, check out the channel. Well over 400 videos, different levels from beginner to advanced.
Yeah, if you click on my name or photo, it'll take you straight to my homepage, which I should have just said to do that when I was talking about that beginner playlist, because that is on my homepage on my channel there. So if you want to find that video for the brushstroke worksheet, it's right there on my video. And then my website is thankfulart.com. Also wanted to say, if you are a subscriber and you want notifications of our videos, I would highly suggest clicking on that little bell that's next to the video or next to the subscribe button, because what that will do is send you an email when we have a new video up. When we go live, it'll send you an email and let you know. So it just if you want to stay up on what we're doing, and because YouTube doesn't always suggest videos unless you watch that person within the last week or two. Sometimes you kind of fall off of people will fall off your radar on your YouTube suggested list if you haven't watched them recently. So if you go on vacation a couple weeks and watch a bunch of dog videos, and then we may not get suggested to you unless you seek us out. So just the way YouTube works. So if you want to stay up on what we're doing, be sure to click that bell icon or get in our newsletter, or both. You can sign up for the newsletter at my website, thankfulart.com. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you Saturday. Bye.